What you gonna do? What you gonna do when I come for you? Bad boys, bad boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when I come for you? When you were 8 and you had bad traits, you go to school and learn the golden. All right, y'all, come on, get some of this today. This is, you know what? I'm having a ball. I was just accosted by the Prince Hall police again. I don't believe it. I don't believe. Bro, look, man. I don't believe I was just pulled over just a few minutes ago, not long, maybe about an hour ago, by the Prince Hall police. It's hard, man. It's hard. I don't know what's going on with that situation. I was just pulled over again not long ago by the Prince Hall police. Bruh, I don't know. I mean, William Woodson, bruh, look. I don't know the situation in hand, but the Prince Hall police pulled me over just a little while ago. I don't understand it. You know, and they did this episode called John G. Jones #7, and I don't know, Brother Larry Diamond. I don't know, man. I was just pulled over just a little while ago by the Prince Hall police, man, and I don't get that. But I guess, I guess, bro, I mean, when they pulled me over, bro, I just turned the song on. I was like, okay, wait a minute, you pulled me over. I just started playing the song. I was like, what you gonna do, man? What you want? Bruh. So New boys. Oh my God. I don't get it. Greetings, everybody. Man, you know what? I was just pulled over. What you gonna do when I come for you, bad boy? I don't get it, man. Oh God, I'm trying to, man. Look, let me stop. I need to stop, y'all. I need to stop. Hold on. So let me tell you, this is what happened, right? I was minding my own business, brothers. I was really minding my own business. And I got pulled over. I got pulled over again today. And I'm quite sure that some of you have seen this show by Josh Falesko. And I just couldn't believe it, man. He couldn't even call my name on the show. He couldn't call my name. I was waiting to hear him say, he blurred out my name. I'm like, bro, say my name. Oh, this is comical. I mean, he gonna say this brother, talking about he gonna tell the truth, and he ain't, look. I gotta find it. Hold on. I gotta find it. I know I got it here. Hold on. I know I got it here. I gotta find this particular show, and we're gonna talk about this show today. Oh my goodness. I gotta find this show. Hold on, let me see if I can find this show here. Oh man, this is crazy. I'll tell you. How's everybody doing today? I hope that you're doing well today. I really do. Hope that your family is well. Everybody. I hope everybody is well. Let's see if I can pull this up. Let's see what I got here. This was funny to me. Man, I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe that this guy did this show. And he didn't invite me on. He didn't even invite me on. I just can't believe it. Hit the likes button for me. And let me see if I can find this show real quick here. How's everybody doing? I hope that your family is doing well. Today, we're just going to have a little fun. I just want to have a little fun. Nothing real serious. Very lighthearted, that sort of thing. Very, very lighthearted, Everybody needs to have some fun every now and then. Okay, everybody need to have some fun every now and then. So let's have a little fun. Let's have a little fun. Let's see if I can get this. There you go. Let's see. Let me see. I'm gonna take this back because this is funny. But before let me. Yeah. I think this is it right here. Let me see. How's everybody doing? Thank you. Hey, what's going on? Let's see if I can see what this guy is talking about. Let's see what we got here.
Really holding out on this episode, just because
he said he's been holding out on the episode,
and things like that.
Let's see.
But truthfully, the subscribers that we do have all kept asking for it.
Yeah. You have 189 subscribers asking for the show. Okay, let's see.
And I sat there and I said, you know what? Better now than never.
Greetings, everybody. Greetings. Little Valley greetings.
When we talk about John G. Jones is one of the most influential Masons or ex-Masons there ever was. We know him as somebody who is the father of bogus masonry, but a lot of people don't know he brought over a lot of degrees into Prince Hall while he was a Prince Hall Mason. We're going to get into his career. I'm not talking about his beginnings because I did that on one of my lectures. I'm not doing that. We're going over the downfall of what was John G. Jones.
We're going to go over the downfall. Now he's going to go over the downfall.
The whole point of this is to get people to understand that expelled Masons are no longer Masons and don't have a right to start their own Grand Lodge.
Let's listen to this.
So if you're ready, let's get to it.
Let's get to it then.
Beginning with John G. Jones, we got to talk about what is the meaning of expulsion. And the first thing I'm going to say is this. When you look at Mackey's jurisprudence,
pull it out.
I have here. Which I have here.
Yeah, we see it.
I want everybody to understand that this book has been the governing guide for a lot of bogus Masonic organizations. They use this book for their trials. They use this book for their laws, and it is a governing guide. A lot of them don't even write their own. They just use that book. When we look at the explanation of what that means, it says here, a suspended or expelled Mason, one who, though neither is yet of bad character or moral conduct, cannot rightfully claim the assistance of a Mason or a lodge of Masons. So once you are expelled, you cannot ask for any relief.
No, it's not. It's Josh Falesko.
According to the book,
I think that's his name.
Right? And mind you, this is something that many jurisdictions follow. And I'm going to keep it real. A lot of people don't. It's okay. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat any of that. Another thing it says in the book, it says that the Grand Lodge of New York, which is our counterpart here in New York, has very properly deemed expulsion as implying a termination not only of Masonic intercourse or connection with the body.
Greetings, everybody. How you doing?
But from the Masonic fraternity. So in other words, when you're expelled, you're gone. You're not here. You have nothing to do with us. You do your own. You're out. And this is from regular Masonry. Continuing on with what the book says, it says the expelled person is, in truth, deprived of all exercise of his Masonic functions and is incapable of any communion with his brethren.
Non-Masons.
Once again, we don't have Masonic intercourse with expelled Masons. You need to understand that.
Okay.
But if I know him to be an expelled Mason, I am not bound to heed his call. From an expelled Mason is legally dead. Is a legally dead Mason or no Mason at all. Once again, you get expelled, you're not a Mason anymore. That's it. To be a Mason, you have to be part of a jurisdiction.
Now, he's right in regards to that. However, his thing is that he's quoting that from Mackey's jurisprudence, and he's saying that this is what most bogus Grand Lodges use, but he's quoting that from Mackey's. So apparently he's telling me that his jurisdiction uses this particular Masonic law book or jurisprudence in regards to Freemasons. That's what he's telling me. That's what I'm getting out of this, because that's what he's quoting. Okay, that's what he's quoting. Let's hear what else he got to say. Greetings, everybody. What's going on?
It's that simple. Oh, let me rephrase that. A regular jurisdiction. It must be borne in mind that expulsion completely severs the connection of expelled individual and the fraternity. And it also states here that expulsion annuls all Masonic status and obliterates Masonic existence, and the Mason, whoever it may be, that has been legally expelled from one lodge can never receive admission into another. Now, mind you, this is all in Mackey's jurisprudence.
So he's using Mackey's
the governing guide of many of these organizations.
He's
not saying the governing guide of all of them, but of the governing guide. You can't sit here and say we're going to use this book and then not use the book. Like it's and unless you have it written in your own book, where you take bits and pieces from here and add it, that's something different. You can't sit there. That's just ironic to even say. When we look at our jurisdiction, right? Our jurisdiction clearly states that expulsion is suspension from all rights and privileges of Masonry, which shall be for a definite or indefinite time. But the question becomes, what is the rights and privileges of Masonry?
Greetings, everybody. I'm listening to this so I can get a better understanding of what the man trying to say.
It says the suspension or expelled Mason shall not be entitled to Masonic relief, nor his widow or orphan children shall not be permitted to visit lodges, walk in Masonic procession, participate in public, nor private Masonic ceremonies, nor to receive a Masonic burial.
Good evening.
These are the Masonic rights.
Doing well. Okay? I'm doing well.
I do not consider an expelled Mason a brother. Let me make that very clear. You are gone. You're done.
So he said he does not consider an expelled brother a Mason. Now, here's the thing. John G. Jones died in 1914. Just so you know, Josh, he's dead. Just so you know.
Yeah, there's nothing else to talk about.
All right.
Right. Now that we got the whole expulsion thing out of the way, let's talk about John G. Jones. And I'm going to do a quick timeline.
Do it.
And then we're going to get into details on certain points of these timelines.
All right.
In 1889, in Cleveland, Ohio, John G. Jones revived and reorganized the General Grand Masonic Congress. In 1889, the man was still a Prince Hall Mason. When we look at 1893, we have the establishment of the Prince Hall Shriners, right? With John G. Jones as the head of all that.
Yeah, you know, you got him.
In 1895, we have John G. Jones being suspended from the United Supreme Council.
Wait a minute. Back up. John G. Jones being suspended from the Supreme Council in 1895. This is what he says. Well, if he's suspended from the Supreme Council in 1895, but he's still a member of the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Illinois. Okay. Some may say, well, you know what? You could be suspended from the Scottish Rite body, and you still could be a member of the Grand Lodge. Okay. All right. I got you. Okay. All right. So I just want to clear that up. Let's see.
And then in 1896, we have the formation of the Grand Lodge AF and AM of DC. Now, this is very, very.
So let's talk about the Grand Lodge of Washington, D.C. during that time. For one thing, it was called Ancient York Rite Free and Accepted Masons. Okay? It was under, if I'm not mistaken, it was York Rite Free and Accepted Mason. That's what it was, Mr. Felicio. That was the original name of that Grand Lodge in Washington, D.C. Okay? That was the original name. Go back and pull the original documents of that Grand Lodge, and you will find out the original name was the Grand Lodge, Washington, D.C., York Free and Accepted Masons. Okay? York Free and Accepted Mason. It did not change its name until later. Let's go on.
Important because it wasn't John G. Jones that had nothing to do with this formation. It was H.C. Scott.
Oh, no. You're wrong. It was not H.C. Scott. H.C. Scott had nothing to do with the formation of that Grand Lodge in its beginning conception. That was Seville. Seville was the guy that took lead on that Grand Lodge. Boom. Go back and pull the original paperwork on that, brother. You'll find that Seville was the original guy who helped formate that Grand Lodge. That's right, Seville.
C. Scott, who was at the helm of this formation. And he is an expelled Mason from the Prince Hall Grand Lodge at DC. He formed his Grand Lodge. But it's important that I mention it because John G. Jones and C. Scott were attached by the hip. And he had a big situation that had to do with a court case that John G. Jones was involved with, which we're going to touch on very quickly also. In 1896, there was an article in the Washington Bee that the White Shriners recognized the legitimacy of the Shriners of the ancient Arabic order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, right? I'm going to get into details about this because somebody, but here's the thing: somebody recently went out their way to give half-ass information.
Talking about
me. Give the entire truth, and there's a reason why I'm saying that because this individual is now pledging that he's going to start telling the truth.
I didn't pledge
that. The truth, but yet he doesn't know how to spit the truth. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to correct and acknowledge and then talk about the truth with this situation. In the 1900s, the ancient Egyptian Arabic order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine was formed. And when you look at 1903, the most worshipful St. John's Grand Lodge AFNAM Illinois was formed. For those that don't know, this was the Grand Lodge that John G. Jones had joined and became the Grand Secretary of literally after its formation, while William Gray became its Grand Master. In 1903, he was also suspended from Prince Hall.
So let's have an understanding. In 1903, he said that John G. Jones was suspended from PHA. From Prince Hall, all right? But what he didn't tell you, that A.C. Scott, who formulated the Grand Lodge, St. John's Grand Lodge, was out of Washington, D.C. He didn't tell you that part. He didn't tell you the part that when they held the trial, they tried to say that John G. Jones, they tried to say that H.C. Scott was an expelled Mason, but they didn't know who he was and he was out of Washington, D.C. That's in their Masonic records. He didn't tell you that part. All right? He didn't tell you that part. All right? Let's go on.
And then in 1904, he was expelled from the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge.
Okay, so you heard what he said. He said in 1904, John G. Jones was expelled from the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Illinois in 1904, not 1903. That's what he just said.
Illinois. We're going to touch on all that.
All right.
In 1904, also, we saw something happen with the Shriners where there was a mass exodus. So let me touch on this real quick.
Go ahead.
We saw that in 1893, the Prince Hall Shriners was formed, but then in the 1900s.
Wait a minute. In 1903, the Prince Hall Shriners was not formed. The ancient Egypt Arabic Order Nobles of the Mystic Shrine was organized in 1900. That's when they was organized. Go and look at the tombstone of your founder. It says 1900, not 1903. Come on now, Josh, you can do better than that.
In 1900, there was another branch off that was created, which was the ancient Egyptian Arabic Orders of Nobles of the Mystic Shrine. I'm not a Shriner. Okay. I'll be the first one to tell you that. I'm not going to sit here and get into details on anything that had to do with that. I'm just talking history.
Repeat what you said, Josh, real quick.
I'm not a Shriner.
No. I want to make sure you're not confusing the two imperial councils.
Right.
That's
all.
We're
gonna get into that in a second. So we have at this point in 1900, we have the formation of the ancient Egyptian Arabic Order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine.
Okay.
And what happens is between 1900 and 1903 or 1904, we have two shrines.
No, you don't.
Prince Hall has two shrines.
Prince Hall, wait a minute, back up. Prince Hall does not have two shrines. They have one. They have the one that is called Ancient Egypt Arabic Nobles of the Mystic Shrine. That's the only one you got. That's the only one you incorporated. You didn't incorporate no other shrine. John G. Jones held the patent and paperwork for the Ancient Arabic Order Nobles of the Mystic Shrine. You don't have two Shriners, man. Come on, you trying to have it both ways, Josh. It ain't happening, bro. Why don't you invite me on your show, Josh? Say my name, say my name. Come on, let's go.
Over to the ancient Egyptian. A lot of them stood with the ancient Arabic order nobles of the Mystic Shrine, which is the John G. Jones faction. And so what happened was, once Jones was expelled, everybody who was not associated with Jones left and joined the ancient Egyptian Arabic order of the Mystic Shrine. And the only people that were left over were the ones that was essentially expelled. And that's very important to understand, because at this point you have a shell of a company. Well, at this point, all it is a shell company. It's nothing else, right? So in 1904, you saw everybody else, and that truly when we went from 2 Prince Hall Shriners to 1.
He said in 1904, you went from 2 Prince Hall Shriners to 1. No way. You only had 1. And that was the one that was organized in 1900. Why you can't say that? Why you can't say that? Come on, man.
In 1906, we have the formation of the King Solomon Grand Lodge of New York. In 1908, we have the formation of the Hyman Grand Lodge of New York. And I'm mentioning those because those are formed. They were formed by John G. Jones and another person.
Now, let's back that up. He said that they was formed by John G. Jones and another person, but he never names the other person. And this is what gets me. Everybody always says, well, John G. Jones organized. Look, tell me what Grand Lodge that John G. Jones was Grand Master of. Name me one. And I know the one he was Grand Master of, but name me another one. Name me another Grand Lodge that John G. Jones was a Grand Master of, besides the one that is called St. John's Grand Lodge of Chicago, Illinois, ancient, free, and accepting Masons. I'm having a ball today. This is great. I'm having a ball.
In 1910, we saw the court case against the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of DC, with the Grand Lodge AF&M of DC that we spoke about. I think it was 2 episodes ago. Yeah, 2 episodes ago at the Order Courts. And then in 1914, we saw that Jones passed away in 1914.
Wait a minute. He skipped over that court case. He skipped over the court case. Let's talk about the court case. He skipped over it. On the court case, they actually won the court case in the beginning. They actually won the court case. Then on the appeal, H.C. Scott, John G. Jones, and those members won that court case on the appeal. He's not telling you that. He just talks about it. He's not telling you in the beginning they won it, and then it was reversed on the appeal. Now, here's the thing about that court case. What happened in that court case is that the Grand Lodge of Washington, D.C., Ancient, Free, and Accepted Masons incorporated first before the Prince Hall Grand Lodge did. And that's how they was able to win the court case on the appeal. Mind you, both of those Grand Lodges, right? The members who formulated the Grand Lodge of Washington, D.C., Ancient, Free, and Accepted Masons were former members of Prince Hall Grand Lodge. They split. This is how you got it. They didn't just come out the blue. Those were members of Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Washington, D.C. They formulated that Grand Lodge. Check out Seville. Seville was the guy. He was the hitman. He was the trigger man for it. He was that guy. It was Seville. It wasn't A.C. Scott. It was the Seville. All right, let's move on. Boy.
So what started happening was in 1885.
Greetings, everybody.
We have the United Supreme Council situation where Jones was Lieutenant Grand Commander. And at this point, he had asked to be excused from the evening. This is during the voting. It was around 10 o'clock, and this is all according to minutes. I'm going to show you guys this in a second. And the commander in chief gave him permission to leave, right, to retire for the night. Word has it that he was doing stuff all day, and he was tired. And when we look at it, the election of the Grand Office being in order, brethren were duly elected and installed to the grand offices for the ensuing 3 years.
Okay, so he's talking about the election that was put on, and what they did was Jones was at the election, and as he said, he was busy. He was doing his thing. Then the flip part is that Jones was asked to be excused. We're talking 10 p.m. at night at a meeting. He was asked to be excused. Once he was excused, they held the elections. He comes back and he's like, well, damn, what's going on here? They elected him to Grand Chancellor according to their records. He was no longer the Lieutenant Sovereign Grand Commander. He was now the Chancellor according to their records. Let's continue to listen. Greetings, everybody who's coming on. I'm PHO and I don't go along with the foolishness. Oh, brother, I'm just having a great time, brother. Greetings, everybody.
This is directly from minutes, and what you start to see is things changed. Thornton Jackson was now the most puissant sovereign grand commander of Washington D.C. And what you saw was Jones get demoted to Grand Chancellor. And this is very, very important to understand because the next day,
what's going on, brother Kenneth?
Jones sets up his own United Supreme Council, creates his own minutes, and then literally sends those minutes out as if they're legitimate minutes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And the way this was debunked was that you had one individual that was listed twice in there, and it was the Grand Secretary, or the one, the ones that writes the minutes. And he had went on record and stated that he was a part of the Thornton Jackson, not the Jones faction. And that's how that whole situation was debunked, because for some time there was confusion in the craft because of this. Mm-hmm. And some did go with Jones and some did go with Thornton Jackson. And so, because back then there's no internet, and so everything is through circulation. And Jones knew this. Jones was not stupid. He was a smart man. He knew how to get ahead. He had trademarked the United Supreme Council name. And it became an issue because the Thornton Jackson's
Now, mind you, this happened in 1895. He trademarked that. He incorporated that Supreme Council. He's absolutely right. And when he did that, at that time, he was still the Deputy Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Illinois, if you're talking during that time. This is what gets me. How is it that you can be a sovereign grand commander of another Supreme Council and have your membership as a Grand Lodge officer in another Blue Lodge? You can't convince me to say that Jones wasn't already gone. Once he incorporated the Southern and Western Masonic jurisdiction, it was a wrap. He was gone. Let me tell you how I know that. There's an article that is out. And if you want a copy of this particular article, I would email it to you. I would text it to you. In 1877, John G. Jones called for a national convention of Black Masons. He did that in Chicago. You need to read that article. Let's go on.
The council had to change his name. So, real quick, in 1896, there was this article, right, where the White Shriners, which is now known as the Shriners International, had chose to recognize the charter from the ancient Arabic order nobles of the Mystic Shrine. This person, who will remain nameless because
say my name,
he's not getting that burn on my show.
Say my name. He won't say my name.
Went out and said that they recognized that faction. What he slightly missed over was that he did not mention that they were Prince Hall Shriners.
Look. He said what I slightly missed over were they was Prince Hall Shriners. Look, man, you can't do that, Josh. How you gonna do that, man? Look, Josh. Man, come on, man.
So they weren't just recognizing, the ancient Arabic order of nobles of the Mystic Shrine. They were acknowledging and recognizing regular Masons. And this is important because in 1904, when everybody moved over, mm-hmm. it was not the same. It was not the same members. Mm-hmm. So.
Oh my goodness!
Trying to see if I can catch up here.
So for that time, I'm having a little fun today. I'm having a little fun today. I'm not going to probably go all through this, but I was pulled over earlier today by the Prince Hall police, and Josh hopped out the car, and I had to respond because I wanted to make sure that there was a clear understanding of what was happening, because he didn't give me a chance to speak. He didn't. I mean, he can invite me on the show anytime he wants to, because I've often said that we can have a conversation. He's welcome to come on here. I'm just saying. Let's go on with this, because this is funny.
And he failed to mention that. That's very extremely important. And when we talk about the ancient Arabic order of the Nobles of Mystic Shrine, you have to understand that when it comes to Shriners, you need to be a Master Mason in good standing to join. That's the first thing, right? And
want me to touch on that?
Yeah, if you can, please.
Yeah, because I'm a member. I'm a member of Al-Masir 251 by way of Al-Hijaz number 99. And the requirements for membership have changed over the years. Now, at the time that I joined in 2014, you only had to had been a Prince Hall Master Mason, good standing or otherwise. The prerequisite was just that you were indeed a Master Mason. You did not necessarily have to be financially current. And again, that's changed over the years. Prior to that, obviously, you had to be current. There were some things that transpired where leadership dictated it not a necessity. And prior to that, early 2000s, around a lot of our old timers, our predecessors here in New York, they'll tell you that at the time you had to be a member of either the Scottish Rite, one of the two recognized Prince Hall Supreme Councils, Northern Jurisdiction, which is headquartered out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Southern Jurisdiction, headquartered out of Memphis, Tennessee, or be a Sir Knight.
Greetings,
in New York,
everybody.
right, having received your capitular and chivalric degrees in the Holy Royal Arch, as well as the Knights Templar. So, say all that to say that requirements have changed over the years. So I don't want you to think that we're leaving things out or poking things out in the story or leave you with inconsistencies. The requirements have changed over the years.
Right. Cool. So during this time, you had to be a Master Mason, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
But here's the problem. And I'm not one to sit here and talk about formation. I'm not familiar with the Shriners Law to understand what is considered clandestine, what is considered regular. I can't talk about that because I'm gonna be honest, I don't know. So I don't even know if there even is such a thing. So I'm not gonna touch on that. But one thing I will say that is a fact is that
yes. I mean, just short answer, yes. But
okay,
continue.
So the ancient Egyptian Arabic order nobles of the Mystic Shrine.
Greetings, everybody.
Consist of regular Master Masons. Correct. The ancient Arabic order nobles of Mystic Shrines comprises of nothing but bogus Masons.
All right, now let's have an understanding here. First, you're gonna tell me that John G. Jones is the founder of the Shriners, right? Apparently, your Shriner is clandestine, according to what you just said. Your Shriner is clandestine. The reason that is because John G. Jones, who had the patent, who was the imperial potentate at that time, was no longer part of your fraction. And if that is true, and we know it's true, then your Shriners are clandestine. According to what you said, Josh, that's what you said. I'm just saying.
That is the difference. Okay. When we look at the body and the membership of who comprises these two organizations and who's filling these two organizations, that's what you have.
Mm-hmm.
There is no regular Mason that is a member of the ancient Arabic order nobles of the Mystic Shrine.
Josh, we birthed you, or you birthed. Let me stop.
And I'm not talking about the state Grand Lodges because they changed their name. They changed their name to Shriners International. I'm talking about specifically the ones that have lineage or claim to have lineage to John G. Jones.
Josh, we don't claim to have lineage to John G. Jones. As far as you're concerned, we are John G. Jones. There's a difference. I ain't claiming nothing. I'm telling you exactly who we are.
Okay. And this is very, very important.
Early 1900s.
Because no matter how you want to flip it, this is the facts. The Prince Hall Shriners, which is the ancient Egyptian Arabic order nobles of the Mystic Shrine, does comprise of regular Masons.
Where did you get your charter from? who chartered your who chartered your imperial council? That's the question, Josh. Who chartered it?
Legitimate Masons. And the ancient Arabic order nobles of the Mystery Shrine comprises of nothing but bogus Masons. No matter how you want to flip it, that is a fact. So I needed to get that out the way. Woo. There was also another article, I forgot what year it was, but that this guy touched on when he talked about being recognized by the Supreme Council of Louisiana. I need to touch on that real quick because I think it was in 1890 something. I think that they decided to recognize Jones's United Supreme Council, but what he did not mention, and which is very, very important, was that around 1905 they pulled that recognition, and that recognition.
Okay, so he said they pulled recognition in 1905. If this is true, and you say they did, could you please give me the newspaper clipping or article? Because we know that at this time, anything that was rationally or legitimately or whatever came through the newspaper. We all know this. And if this be the case, I would like for you to tell me what article I can find it at, where I can find it at.
It was pulled for a reason, and it was never reestablished. So right now, they cannot visit each other because it was pulled for a reason. When we look, he also said that the Grand Lodge of New York had recognized St. John's Grand Lodge at one point, which is Jones's organization. I forgot the year.
Also, 23rd.
Right. So just to put this out there, while they may have, he didn't touch on the fact that they pulled recognition also because they were bogus Masons.
And if that be the case, I'd like to see the documents on that. I mean, I have not seen any documents to where they pulled that. I think in my own, I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened. I'm only giving you the information at my fingertips to say this occurred. What happens after that? I don't know. You said they pulled recognition. Show me where they pulled recognition at. And if they did, that's cool. Yeah.
Because they were not regular Masons. He did not talk about that. And this is where we have an issue because he would only give information, but not give the entire story. People feed him this information, and all he does is sit there and literally read for whatever they're giving him.
I do my own research. I've always encouraged everyone, if you're gonna bring up some, do your own research, come to your own conclusion. So don't tell me what somebody's giving me, somebody's hand feeding me. Man,
he is not a researcher. He is not a historian. All he is a parrot that's feeding whatever, that's reading whatever's being fed to him. Okay, understand that because you will ask him questions. Guarantee you from what he's reading, and he won't know anything about before or after. Just what's in front of him. Moving on.
Greetings, everybody.
In 1903, we have a suspension from the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. They brought him to trial, and they found him guilty.
Now, he said that John G. Jones was suspended from the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. I haven't seen any document that says that they had dual jurisdiction. How can another Grand Lodge suspend another man when he doesn't have membership in their Grand Lodge, Josh? Come on, man. I'm just saying. Look, somebody tell me, how can I be suspended from a Grand Lodge that I'm not even a member of? He just said it himself. The most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Boston suspended Jones. You don't have membership there. How can you do it?
And I need to read something from here because it says from this news, from this article, because from this notice that he was suspended, because it's extremely important for people to understand. Illinois has no jurisdiction over Massachusetts. Jones was in Massachusetts creating these bogus Masons. And that's an issue because you can't be tried in Massachusetts if you belong in Illinois. So what happened was the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts brought him up to charges, even though he's not a member of the jurisdiction, right? But here's the caveat, and here's the tricky part. In the proceeding, it clearly states that after a fair and impartial trial before the most worshipful Grand Lodge of Illinois, he was found guilty and charged and given an indefinite suspension. And the key phrase that I need people to understand, before the most worshipful Grand Lodge of Illinois.
Hold on. Let's go. You posted that article. You posted it up there. You posted. Let's see what else that article says.
In the proceeding, it clearly states that after a fair and impartial trial.
All right, let's see what this article says right here. I paused it because I want to read it. It says, in assisting irregular and clandestine Masons. Who was the irregular and clandestine Mason that Jones was assisting at that time? It says, and Masonic works in the city of Boston, contrary to his obligation and go to the detriment in the injurer in the regular lodge, working on the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. After a fair and impartial trial before the most worshipful Grand Lodge of Illinois, Brother Jones conducting his side of the case and presenting his defense. He was found guilty as charged and given an indefinite suspension by a unanimous vote. Brother Jones immediately returned to Chicago with one William Gray, a discredited, unrecognized Mason of no standards in this jurisdiction. Hey, in what jurisdiction? William Gray wasn't even in the Grand Lodge of Boston, Massachusetts. He wasn't even in the Grand Lodge. He wasn't a member of their jurisdiction. William Gray came from Washington, D.C. That's where he was from. Look the man up and find out exactly what Masonic Lodge he was from. He was from Washington, D.C. All right? And they say he was a discredited and unrecognized Mason. They don't even know who he was. You got to look the man up. Come on now. You can do better than that. Now, it says that William Gray, a discredited and unrecognized Mason of no standards in this jurisdiction, because he was never produced any evidence which would entitle him to the Masonic recognition. He didn't. He didn't have to. He didn't have to.
Before the most worshipful Grand Lodge of Illinois, he was found guilty and charged and given an indefinite suspension.
I'm just saying.
And the key phrase that I need people to understand, before the most worshipful Grand Lodge of Illinois, meaning they had permission from the Grand Lodge to do this. So in other words, someone loaded the gun, and the following year, the Grand Lodge pulled that trigger. And I'm going to get to that in a second, but I also want to read another part of this article. It says John G. Jones was tried on preferred charges against him by the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts for participating with assisting irregular and clandestine Masons.
He never names who were the irregular and clandestine Masons. They never name them. They never say what jurisdiction, what lodge, never named them.
So that was the reason why Massachusetts brought charges on him. A lot of these bogus Masons don't understand this. They just, and in their eyes, the way they look at it is, well, how can he be tried if he's not a member of this jurisdiction?
That's right. Let's see.
Understand that clearly it states here, before the most worshipful Grand Lodge of Illinois. So that clearly shows that they had permission from his Grand Lodge to do so.
No, can I?
Look, another Grand Lodge cannot give permission to another Grand Lodge to bring a person up on Masonic charges. I've never heard of such a thing. Somebody need to help me out. You mean to tell me I can give permission to another Masonic body to bring Masonic charges up on my Masonic brother? I've never heard of such a beast.
To that,
Absolutely, please.
not only that, I think what a lot of people fail to realize is, and you'll find this in just about damn near every jurisdiction's constitution, all Master Masons are subject to the laws of the jurisdiction in which they reside.
And
So-
in any other jurisdiction.
No,
Right.
bruh.
Mhm.
So,
Hold on. As a Mason, I'm only bound as a Mason to my jurisdiction. Hear me clearly. As a Mason, I can't go bring up any other Mason on Masonic trial in another jurisdiction. I can't do it. I'm bound by the obligation I took as a Mason to the jurisdiction for which I'm a member of. That's where your allegiance lies, to your jurisdiction, and inclusively to the Brotherhood of Freemasonry. But no Mason can bring another Mason up on Masonic charges unless they're in the same jurisdiction. Oh, but what if my Grand Lodge gave permission? If your Grand Lodge gave permission, then you must be in recognition. You must be recognized by them, which the two Grand Lodges were. But still, you cannot, and I say you cannot circumvent the mere fact that he's not a member of that Grand Lodge. Come on, let's go.
So, like, if you're from Pennsylvania, you move to Arizona, you're still subjected to their Masonic law. Should there be any friction? Normally, there's not. But I say all that to say, even if that wasn't the case, they didn't need Massachusetts permission.
You mean they need Illinois permission?
Well, Illinois, excuse me.
He's right.
Illinois, Illinois didn't have to sign off on that because that's where you start. And I'm not going down the rabbit hole of invasion of territory, but
absolutely it is.
And to further add to that, there's a lot of constitutions that actually have that in there that.
But your constitution does not.
The jurisdiction and you start acting.
Greeting everybody. I hope that you're doing well today.
You are subject to the.
I was pulled over by the Masonic police today, and I had to come on.
Constitutional laws.
Right, and I wouldn't be surprised if Illinois had that clause in their constitution because we've known other jurisdictions to have that clause. Very important. Thank you for that point. Completely forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. You did, didn't you?
In 1904, that's when we saw the trigger get pulled. And we saw the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Illinois expel John G. Jones from the order.
I have a question. Was Jones expelled in 1903 or 1904? Because if you tell me he was expelled in 1904, so you're going to say he was suspended in 03, expelled in 04. But by then, St. John's Grand Lodge is up and going. Jones has moved on. I bet you anything you want to bet. John G. Jones, before this whole thing even went down, he already shot. When he became the most puissant sovereign grand commander and incorporated the Southern and Western Masonic jurisdiction, he was ghost. Because there's no way that you can hold membership in another Scottish Rite body or Supreme Council and be a part of another Grand Lodge that doesn't even recognize that Supreme Council. It doesn't add up. Too much milk is in that coffee.
I'm going to read some things from the minutes. It says, being of an indefinite suspension placed on him by the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge, assisted by one William Gray, did proceed to confer upon the said profanes the first, second, and third degrees of masonry unlawfully and without authority. It says here, the committee met on Saturday, November 28th, 1904, and proceeded with the trial. Jones and Gray was found guilty as charged by committee.
How can you find Jones and Gray guilty when Gray is not even a member of your jurisdiction? Come on, look. Gray was a member of the Grand Lodge out of Washington, D.C., not Boston. That's number one. But you're going to tell me that you're going to bring Gray and Jones up on charges when Gray is not even a member of the jurisdiction? Before that, you already said that he was a discredited Mason. And if he's a discredited Mason and you don't know where he come from, and you said that in the beginning, how can you bring Gray up on charges? I'm just saying. Now, this is what you said.
And recommended by the most worshipful Grand Master that they both be expelled. It
was recommended by both. It was recommended by the Grand Master that both be expelled. You cannot expel a person who's not in your jurisdiction. William Gray was not in the jurisdiction of Prince Hall, period. None of their jurisdiction. How can you do that? Something ain't right.
Recommendations of the committee was approved. Now, I want to bring something very, very clear. William Gray was an unknown Mason. He was not a legitimate Mason. He was bogus in every right. We don't know who.
If you're telling me he was an unknown Mason, then you're telling me he was bogus in every right. Then you're going to tell me you don't know who he is or who he was. Come on, man. You can't do that.
Who gave him his degrees. We don't know what Grand Lodge he originally came from. And when you break it down, there's no way of knowing who this guy is. And there's no proof that he was a legitimate Mason whatsoever. If there is, I would love for somebody to show me that.
All right. Now, he said if William Gray was a legitimate Mason in a jurisdiction, he would love for somebody to show him that. So I'm asking you, Josh, invite me on your show so I can show you that. How about them cookies? Invite me on your show so I can show you that.
But when it's all said and done, it's in the minutes that they were expelled at this point. What started happening is, and this is very important, we started to see that once they were suspended, once Jones was suspended, he got together with Gray and he formed St. John's Grand Lodge in Illinois. He saw the writing on the wall. He knew he was on his way out. He decided to sit there and create his own Grand Lodge at that point. He with the assistance of William Gray. For those that don't know, William Gray was later on expelled from St. John's Grand Lodge and then replaced by John G. Jones as the new Grand Master. So he was just a placeholder. That's all he was. And he was used just like anybody else Jones has used in the past. Very important topic and when it comes to Jones' career, because not many people, there's word that, oh, we don't have this documented, we don't know where it came from. No, we have it documented and everything is documented.
Wait a minute, you heard him say that everything is documented. And if that's being true, then you have to know where William Gray came from. You got to know where he comes from. You said it's documented. That's what you just said. Everything is documented. So you got to know where he comes from. And even in the court case, you just said a few minutes ago that he was expelled along with William Gray. And once again, I need you to answer, how can you expel somebody who's not a member of your Grand Lodge or your jurisdiction or any affiliation to you? You said that. I didn't.
Let's move on. And this is very, very important. So we start seeing when the whole United Supreme Council thing happened, right, where there was that split. And we're going to backtrack a little bit because I got to talk about history with Dorsey Seville. Dorsey Seville was his right-hand man, right? And what you started to see was the United Supreme Council was formed and everything started falling apart. At this point, and I'm talking between Jones and Seville, Seville was a 32nd degree Mason. The only 33rd degree Mason that was there was Jones in this whole entire situation when it was reformed.
Not true. If you allow me to come on your show, I can tell you who was all the 33rds that was with Jones at the time. You got to allow me to come on and I'll show it to you and I'll email it to you, Josh. Come on now.
So Dorsey Seville, very important. He was a member of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of DC. And in 1897, he was expelled for the same Masonic crimes as John G. Jones. He helped form Jones's United Supreme Council, and then they had a fallout. And what happens is Seville is expelled from Jones's Shriners, and he's also expelled from the United Supreme Council, and I guess whatever Grand Lodge he was a part of that was helping Jones. And Seville then joins PHO with William D. Matthews, and he forms Eureka Grand Lodge.
No, this is not a live debate. I'm actually having a good time today, just going over to listen to what Josh was talking about, because he won't say my name. He keep pointing. He won't say my name, and I'm wondering why Josh won't say my name. But it's okay. So what I'm doing today is that I'm listening to what he's saying, and then I'm giving my commentary to what he's saying, and then hopefully one day he and I can have a good conversation in regards to information, and we can share it. There's no love lost. It's okay, but you can't keep pulling me over, Josh, asking me for my name, my ID, and then you drive off, you get in your car and leave me. You can't keep doing that now. Come on.
In DC, and is the first Grand Master of that Grand Lodge. He was also the sovereign Grand Commander of the National Supreme Council between 1897 and 1911. Now, this is very, very important because the National Supreme Council was a brand new toy created by Seville and Matthews. They brought over membership from all over. I'm not going to get into details of the National Supreme Council, but they brought them in not as illegally, and we can talk about that a whole nother time. In 1910, there was a lawsuit between Jones and the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of DC, where Jones said under oath that the rumor of Romania granting a charter to the to the Grand Masonic Congress, or matter of fact, not the Grand Masonic Congress, to the Grand Lodge AFNAM of DC, that was a lie created by Seville. And I have an affidavit here written by Jones from this court case where he states that a fan further states upon oath that Dorsey F. Saville was expelled for unmasonic conduct from the United Supreme Council of Scottish Rite Masons and the Imperial Grand Council of Mystic Shrine. Now we're talking about Jones's organization, not we're not talking about the principal.
It was from the National Compact of Grand Lodges. You must understand that Dr. Matthews and John G. Jones did not see eye to eye. Those two guys was always at it. That's the truth. You know, Jones and Matthews did not see eye to eye. All right.
So, and then it states here, Afeni further states that the Afeni's opinion that the said Dorsey Saville is the most unmitigated falsifier, perjurer, and liar that ever disgraced the United States.
Now, what he's reading is for something that took place in 1901, 1910. Josh, you said this affidavit was from 1910. It is not. This affidavit is from 1901 when he was still supposed to be a part of the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Illinois. Come on, Josh. Get your time right. Get your time right.
And here's the best part. That article that was from 1896 that came from the Washington Bee. Guess who was running the Washington Bee? Dorsey Saville. So the credibility of any article that comes from the Washington Bee, in my opinion, is not up there because you have somebody who's a straight up liar running it. And anything that has to do with Jones, I guarantee you, could either not be true or is greatly exaggerated. So understand that we have an issue there also. And and mind you, these documents that I have, I'm gonna post them on the screen so everybody can see. So then let's continue talking about the 1910 lawsuit, right? Where, you know, we spoke about it with the whole sweeping victory document, and it was very quick. We didn't really touch on it too deeply, but there are some things written in the actual court case that I want to highlight. Mm-hmm. The principle upon which courts of equity proceed in restraining the situation of names. I want to emphasize situation of names is not the property acquired by one party, is the name, but to prevent the fraud deception in dealing with the party charged with the simulation of the name by another in a similar business. So to all you that think that this court case was about legitimacy, this one sentence tells you what this court case was about. I don't want to sit here and go back and forth that the court case made you legitimate, because it did not. It was about the name. Further going into this, it says both organizations have a number of members. Only difference in there is their name, is the word ancient, which is found on the title of incorporation. Courts of equity do not exercise jurisdiction to inquire into the right of different association to hold themselves regular. So in other words, this is the jurisdiction of DC saying that they cannot say who's regular and who's not regular. The jurisdiction of DC saying this. And this is important because I'm gonna get to this later on, because every state can say their own thing. I want to touch on John G. Jones being arrested also. So I have this document, right? It was I gotta give credit to James Morgan for this one. So some years ago, the same guy that likes to talk about quote unquote truth, but doesn't tell the truth, sat there and said that Jones was never ever arrested for anything, right? That there's no proof of that people were just running their mouth saying that, but there's never any proof. And he sat there and threw a challenge out to the Prince Hall think tank and said, I would give you guys $100 if you guys can give me that proof. So James stepped up and showed him the proof. And I just want to put it out there and just read certain points from this article. It says the charge of criminal libel the charge, meaning to be charged, you have to be arrested, against J.G. Jones being an envoy of the AF and AM. And then it says Mr. Jones is attacking the parent order in speech and writing. So,
wait a minute, back up. So you didn't tell them in regards to, according to you, he said the charges of criminal liability against John G. Jones, who has been lecturing in the city of color, to colored Masons, being an envoy of the ancient free and accepted Mason colors, was set for hearing before Justice Anderson today. The order which he represents was made up of colored Masons who succeeded from the original order, the ancient free and accepted York Masons. He didn't say Prince Hall Mason. You got to read the whole thing. He said ancient free and accepted York Mason. Mr. Jones is attacking the pattern and the order in speech and writing. Okay? Let's go.
Against J.G. Jones being an envoy of the AF and AM. And then it says Mr. Jones is attacking the parent order in speech and writing. So, not to,
You got to read the whole article. You didn't read the whole article. I just did.
dig in a little bit more, but after this was posted, that video was taken down. And then people wonder why I don't go on that show.
He said the video was taken down. I've never took down any videos. The only video I've actually taken down was the one where we was on, a group of us was on, and it really got out of control with arguments and calling each other names. That's the only video I ever taken down. Other than that, all videos that I've ever done is still up. That challenge is still there. That $100 bet, you're hearing it, it's still there. Let's have some fun.
And one of the biggest things, and also, we're wrapping up soon right now. One of the biggest things I also want to talk about is you also have these fake John G. Jones organizations out there. Like, you have fake Prince Hall organizations, and then you have fake John G. Jones ones as well. I'm gonna, for example, it was at the John G. Jones Grand Lodge, whatever they want to call themselves, right? They have no lineage whatsoever to John G. Jones.
Hey, wait. Let me go back.
Things I also want to talk about is you also have these fake John G. Jones organizations out there. Like, you have fake Prince Hall organizations, and then you have fake John G. Jones ones as well. I'm gonna, for example, it was at the John G. Jones Grand Lodge, whatever.
Oh, come on, man. Josh, you can say my name. You can say my Grand Lodge. It's okay. It's really okay, brother. It's come on, man. You can't be cutting me out of your video. Come on, Josh.
Whatever they want to call themselves, right? They have no lineage whatsoever to John G. Jones. All they did was call themselves John G. Jones, and they claim that they have some type of lineage to them. That Grand Lodge was formed by was formed by members of Hiram of Tyree Grand Lodge in California. And there's a famous court case, and I'm going to share the screen for this one, because this is important. There's a famous court case, right? And this is the most worshipful most worshipful Hiram of Tyree Grand Lodge of ancient, free, and accepted Masons, colored of the state of New York, versus the most worshipful Sons of Light Grand Lodge, ancient, free, and accepted Masons of the jurisdiction of California. And this was in 1949. And I want to sit here and go through this real quickly, because I just want to make this very fast. In this court case, the courts actually determined that both organizations were clandestine. And it clearly states it is conceded, and the court found that both plaintiff and defendants are clandestine Masonic lodges.
Let's hold that right here, John. You got to go back before you point that out. Let's go back. Let's read this. It says, however, there is no evidence of confusion in the name nor finding to that evidence. The courts did not enjoin and defendant for the Sons of Light, but for using any words in which indicate it was connected with Masonry. This is only could be on a theory that the plaintiffs had exclusive rights to practice masonry in California. It conceded that the courts found that both plaintiffs and defendants are clandestine Masons. That's what you always got to go back. And they said that it is difficult to understand how the courts can grant exclusive rights to operate a clandestine lodge. And now look, now this is the funny part in saying this. Everybody always go back to court cases. Let's go back to court cases. And clearly here, because of these two particular jurisdictions that he's talking about, one coming out of the other, they did not have exclusive jurisdiction. And this is why they said that. This is based upon exclusive jurisdiction. And you got to realize during this time, there was to the courts, there was only one Masonic jurisdiction that was legitimate. And that was the most wishful California Grand Lodge, okay? Free and accepted Masons. In 1910, during this time, they was the only legitimate jurisdiction in California. So all Black Masons were clandestine. That's a fact. We may continue. Breathe.
I'm going to just let that breathe for a second. Mm-hmm. And I want people to understand that members of that group,
go back to
you put Brandon Lewis on timeout?
Because I think
take Brandon Lewis. Take Brandon Lewis off the timeout.
A huge component in that paragraph. It says it continues to say, and I quote, "It is difficult to understand how a court can grant an exclusive right to operate a clandestine lodge on the ground that the lodge, which is first formed, has the sole right to exist. Further, however, while the court cannot grant an exclusive right to the first formed lodge, it can prevent a second lodge from misrepresenting so as to give the impression that it is the other lodge or has an exclusive right."
So what that is saying is very important, because what that is saying is neither one of these two Grand Lodges were formed first. When you look at who was formed first, the Grand Lodge of California was formed first. Not neither one of these two. So both of these two are considered clandestine. And I just want to make this very clear. Hiram of Tyree Grand Lodge was formed by Robert J. Fletcher, which is a past Grand Master of the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of California. The year after he was expelled, he created this Grand Lodge. And this is who they're tied to.
Okay. If you don't know the history of the California Grand Lodge, the two sovereign Grand Lodges, there was a sovereign Grand Lodge of California, and there was the National Grand Lodge of California. They joined together to formulate the most wishful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of California, elected R.J. Fletcher their Grand Master. It was not until the Supreme Council of the Southern and Western Masonic jurisdiction, for which R.J. Fletcher was the Grand Chancellor of that jurisdiction, he went with Jones. That's how I got kicked off.
This is who that John G. Jones Grand Lodge is tied to, because of the fact that their members came from that Grand Lodge.
My apologies.
So
right.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is an invasion.
It's not even an invasion of territory. No. Check this out. I'm gonna link this up. I'm gonna link it together real nicely for everybody to understand, because it really, really gets it.
They made the statement that this was an invasion of territory. Do you know that Prince Hall Grand Lodge was around at the same time? Wouldn't that also be inclusive of invasion of territories? Come on, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Not like that. You must remember, in 1910, all Black Masons were considered clandestine. That's a fact. That's the truth. That's not something I'm adding. You can go look this up for yourself.
Down to the point. And mind you, this is California. And the last one, DC said they cannot grant it, but California clearly is sitting here saying, nah, these two are clearly clandestine, right? When you look at it, if the state is sitting here saying, guess what, they are clandestine, and you have members that leave and form a new Grand Lodge called John G. Jones Grand Lodge, guess what? That doesn't...
Man, say my name. You can't keep blocking me out like that. You can't keep doing that. I don't want to give him no power. He too strong for me.
Doesn't change anything. They're still clandestine.
Oh my God.
They're still bogus. It doesn't change.
Look, I got about 10 more
Your
minutes.
lineage is tied to them. And then mind you, you have no lineage whatsoever to regular masonry, and you have nothing time.
Look, I'm gonna get ready to go. I've heard enough of this, man. He won't say my name. I don't know quite what to say and how to deal with it. But look, I've had a lot of fun with this. And like I said, you know, sometimes you just gotta just do what you gotta do and let things happen the way they happen. You know, that's the craziest thing I see about this thing. Man, this is
what
weird.
Does it
you
mean
know,
to be
this
a
is
featherless tulip?
I don't get it. Somebody need to help me out. But I'll tell you what. I'm gonna leave you with this tonight. I'm gonna leave you with this tonight. Just for keepsakes. I'm gonna leave you with this because I believe that you need to, you know, I'm gonna leave you with this tonight. Just follow along with me just for a second. Just for a second. How's everybody doing? I want to say thank you for coming in tonight, joining me, but I'm gonna leave you with this. I'm gonna leave you with this tonight. Oh, when it come for you. Woo! Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when it come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when it come for you? When you Hey guys, look, have a great day. Keep the light on, stay out the bushes. Oh, bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when it come for you? I'm out. Hey guys, I appreciate you. Much love. Peace. I'm out.